United Nations elects Iran to the Commission on Women's Rights. I read to you yesterday that they attribute earthquakes, leading clerics. I don't mean some, little cleric somewhere in Iran, but some of the leading clerics announced that women distracting men by having suntans. That's how they distract men. Suntans, that's it. Just having a tan, that causes earthquakes. And they are stricter than ever now in making sure that women do not wear makeup, do not wear form-fitting clothing, and in other words, do not look like women. And so this is from Fox News. Without fanfare, the United Nations this week elected Iran to its Commission on the Status of Women, handing a 4-year seat on the influential human rights body to a theocratic state in which stoning is enshrined in law and lashings are required for women judged immodest. Just days after Iran abandoned a high-profile bid for a seat on the UN Human Rights Council, it began a covert campaign to claim a seat on the Commission on the Status of Women. Wow, and it got it. I love it. Well, this is when Sudan, remember when Sudan was chair of the Human Rights Commission? The U.S. listen to this. This is a very bad thing about the U.S. No open vote was requested or required by any member states, including the United States. See, I have never believed that the left really cares about women or gays or any of the people or blacks that it purports to care about. It isn't about that. They use women, they use gays, they use blacks, they use Hispanics to further the ends of gaining power. But when push comes to shove, it's a non-issue. That's why I wrote many years ago, why does the left support the Palestinians? Compare the treatment of gays and women, just that alone. Forget the treatment of other religions, the treatment of all people, an independent judiciary, a free press. None of that exists among the Palestinians. It all exists in Israel. The left doesn't care because it doesn't divide the world by that. That doesn't matter to them. That gays are beaten up in the Arab countries that are enemies of Israel. This doesn't bother the left. It bothers the left that Israel is pro-U.S. and is stronger than the Palestinians, and that it has to them a lighter shade of color among its citizens than do the Palestinians, because they divide the world between, on the left, race, gender, class, not good and bad. So here's another perfect example now. We have the left controlling American foreign policy, and a very simple open vote would have said who, in fact, is voting for Iran to become a member of the UN Commission on Women's Rights. Again, I tell you, it's harder and harder to write the newspaper called The Onion, which is a satirical newspaper because the world satirizes itself. The U.S. currently holds one of the 45 seats on the body, a position set to expire in 2012. The U.S. mission to the UN, this is always a giveaway. The U.S. mission to the UN did not return requests for comment on whether it actively opposed elevating Iran to the Women's Commission. By the way, did you hear anything about this from the National Organization for Women? I'm not saying that they didn't say anything. I just want to know if any of you have heard anything about this. Respected cleric Hajotel Islam Kazem Sedigi said, "Many women who do not dress modestly lead young men astray, corrupt their chastity, and spread adultery in society, which consequently increases earthquakes." As word of Iran's intention to join the Women's Commission came out, a group of Iranian activists circulated a petition to the UN asking that member states oppose its election. What courageous 214 people. What courage to send a letter to the UN. This is the perfect example of what Alexander Solzhenitsyn said 30 years ago. The United Nations is misnamed. It is not the United Nations. It is the United Governments. They don't care about, the UN doesn't care about women's rights. It's a non-issue to the United Nations. A non-issue. They have a commission on it, but unless you are seduced by commissions, that proves to you real intentions. It's irrelevant. Iran on the commission. It does make me think. I don't know what the United States. I guess John Bolton's theory is that the United States should just be there and fight. I mean, but that there is nothing said about this. If you hadn't heard it from here, and if I hadn't read it in Fox News, where would you know about this? This is so significant in giving you an idea about the moral status of the United Nations. But it will go down the memory hole in the world. That's what will happen. So 214 people sent this letter to the UN, and they write, women lack the ability to choose their husbands. Can you imagine that, folks? Lack the ability to choose your own husband? Have no independent right to education after marriage? No right to divorce? No right to child custody? Have no protection from violent treatment in public spaces? Are restricted by quotas for women's admissions at universities? And are arrested, beaten, and imprisoned for peacefully seeking change of such laws? The United Nations. Ask your representative if he or she has anything to say about this. We'll be back on the Dennis Prager Show. Let's go to some of your calls here. I was reading to you the staggering news. It's staggering that Iran has been elected to the UN Commission on Women's Rights. It is worse than a wasteland, the United Nations. You see, a wasteland, if all the ambassadors did were have orgies, I would not have any problem. They're not hurting anybody. You know, it's between them and their spouses and their God if they believe in it. That's fine with me. I wish that they would do that. Let them just, have a hedonistic life and do whatever they want in the United Nations. That's okay. But you see, what they do is they rape the language of goodness. If Iran is on a commission on women's rights, then women's rights is a meaningless term. It doesn't mean anything. I have to believe that 99% of you, whatever your politics, have to agree with that. I have to believe that 99% of those of you on the left listening agree with that. But you don't draw the conclusion that the UN is gone. It's over. It's gone. It's a waste. It's another one of the utopian dreams that liberals have had for the world, and I understand it. And listen, when I was a kid, I still remember what day of the year is UN Day, October 24th. When I was a kid, we celebrated UN Day. So I understand having faith in the idea. But the idea stinks now because it's made up, the UN, of mostly thugs. And I don't mean thugs in the Secretariat, though I'm sure there are some. I mean the thuggish nations that compromise its majority. I'll never forget Abba Eban, the late foreign minister of Israel, 1967, when the UN pulled out its forces from the border between Egypt and Israel. And he said, the United Nations is like an umbrella that you retract when it starts to rain. They certainly learned that in Rwanda, didn't they? You're listening to the Dennis Prager Show.